Welcome to the Reality Revolution. I'm your host, Brian Scott, and I want to share with you a wonderful teaching by Dr. Joseph Murphy. This one is called Love is Freedom, taken from his book, How to Use the Power of Prayer, and understanding the way that love can change your life. And there's some great biblical teachings related to what sexuality is in the Bible and how love is actually being referred to that you might find incredibly enlightening. Love is Freedom by Dr. Joseph Murphy. The Pharisees also came unto him, tempting him, and saying unto him, Is it lawful for a man to put away his wife for every cause? And he answered and said unto them, Have ye not read that ye which made them at the beginning made them male and female, and said, For this cause shall a man leave father and mother, and shall cleave to his wife, and shall cleave to his wife, and they twain shall be one flesh. Wherefore they are no more twain, but one flesh. What therefore God hath joined together, let no man put asunder. Whoever shall put away his wife, except it be for fornication, and shall marry another, committeth adultery. And whose marrieth her which is put away doth commit adultery. Matthew 19:3-6 and 9. Let us see these great truths in a new light. God is love, and when true love in the heart unites a man and a woman together, that is actually God joining a couple in a sacred covenant. When there is a true spiritual union between two people, God hath joined. There is no divorce, for none is wanted. They blend spiritually, mentally, and physically. There is no institution on earth so sacred as that of the home you are about to make, and no vows so wonderful as those you make in the marriage ceremony. True marriage is the holiest of all earthly institutions. It should be entered into reverently, thoughtfully, and with a deep understanding of its spiritual significance. Marriage is an accord of divine ideas, a harmony and purity of purpose. Harmony, honesty, love, and integrity must prevail in the minds and hearts of both husband and wife. From the inner state of conscious unity in these essential characteristics of a successful marriage, there comes the outer state, which corresponds to it, making the outer like the inner, peaceful, joyous, and harmonious. When a man marries a woman because of her wealth, social standing, and political connections, or merely because she's young and beautiful, and he wishes to exalt his ego, this is not a real marriage. Actually, it is a sham and a farce. When a woman marries a man because of his profession, or for her own personal security, or for any reason other than real love, such a marriage is false and a masquerade. It is not made in heaven, meaning harmony and divine understanding. I have performed marriage ceremonies for men and women of advanced years, sometimes blessed with as many as 75 to 80 years, chronologically speaking. The fires of sex have died out in many of these cases. Nevertheless, God and love joins them together for the simple reason that they are honest, just, sincere, and truthful with each other. And they seek a loving companionship where they desire to share their joys and experiences together. Honesty, sincerity, integrity, and justice are children of love. And when these are absent in the marriage ceremony, regardless of age, it is not a true marriage. A minister, rabbi, or priest officiating at the ceremony does not validate or sanctify a marriage. He merely confirms objectively what the man and woman already felt to be true subjectively, which was a union of two souls seeking their way back to the heart of God. How often is a marriage a real spiritual union where the parties to the contract blend themselves spiritually, mentally, and physically? And on the other hand, how often is it a legal ceremony against which the husband and wife begin to chafe in a few weeks? Remember that like attracts like, and if you want to attract the right companion, use the proven spiritual approach as follows. Still your mind, Think clearly and with interest on the qualities and attributes you admire in a man or woman, and mentally dwell on the characteristics that you would admire in the other, such as whether he or she is spiritual, loyal, faithful, honest, talented, happy, and prosperous. Gradually, these qualities will sink into your subconscious mind. Infinite intelligence always takes over when you pray this way, and as a result, you will irresistibly attract to you the right companion. The woman or man whom you attract will be the image and likeness of the ideal on which you meditated. You will harmonize perfectly, and there will be mutual love, freedom, and respect. This is called the marriage made in heaven, or peace and understanding. The question frequently arises, should I get a divorce? This is an individual problem, cannot be generalized. In some cases, divorce is not the solution any more than marriage is the solution for a lonely man. Divorce may be right for one person and wrong for another. A divorced woman may be far more noble and godlike than many of her sisters who are living a lie rather than facing the truth. The usual exercises and alibis used to cover up are that it would be bad for John's business, or the neighbors would talk, or it would be bad politics, etc. This, of course, is making a mockery of marriage. Some time ago, I talked with a woman who had been deceived and tricked by her husband. He had told her prior to marriage that he was a representative for an Eastern concern, that he was single, that he belonged to her church organization, all lies. It turned out that he was an ex-convict, a wife-beater, and that he was living with another woman when he married her. She had advanced him some money, thereby whetting his taste for more, which is the real reason why he married her. She thought it was a sin, however, to get a divorce, yet she longed for freedom and peace of mind. I explained to her that she was not really married at all, that such a marriage was simply a sham and a mockery, and that she was living a lie. She thereupon proceeded immediately to get a divorce and dissolved this fraudulent marriage forthwith. I recall the case during the war of a young girl who got highly intoxicated one evening, which resulted in a complete blackout, and she found herself with a marriage certificate the next morning. She had married a native of one of the islands. She was shocked beyond words and had to get a psychiatric treatment. She immediately dissolved the marriage. A great number of people are confused and suffer from a guilt complex based on misinterpretation of the biblical quotation, "Whosoever shall put away his wife, except it be for fornication, and shall marry another, committeth adultery, and whoso marrieth her which is put away doth commit adultery." Matthew 19:9. The Bible also says, "Whosoever looketh on a woman to lust after her hath committed adultery with her already in his heart." Matthew 5:28. Here we are told that adultery is of the heart or the mind. The heart is the seat of the emotions, the feeling nature, the subjective mind. Acts of the body are determined by the movement of the mind. 100 years ago, Phineas Parkhurst Quimby pointed out that the body moves as it is moved upon by your mind, and the body acts as it is acted upon. Fornication in Bible language means giving allegiance and attention to false gods rather than to the one true God, the living Spirit Almighty within man, which is the supreme and sovereign power. The Bible is a psychological document. It points out that when man visits the slums in his own mind and keeps company with mental murderers such as hate, resentment, anger, or ill will, he is cohabiting with evil and is therefore guilty of fornication and adultery. In biblical language, he is already divorced for the simple reason that he has separated himself from God for his immediate pleasure. He is cohabiting with evil in his mind, and he is no longer married to peace, harmony, love, and understanding. Man is fornicating when he mentally and emotionally unites with erroneous concepts, indulges in resentment and anger, or becomes morose and morbid. Whenever men and women are mentally divorced from their marriage vows, eventually there will be a separation or divorce on the external plane. The subjective side of life always controls the objective phase of life. We must remember that just because a man and a woman have a marriage certificate and live in a home, it does not follow necessarily that it is a real home. Perhaps it is a place of discord and hate, when, for example, a child is present and the parents do not know the laws of life. It is better to break up such a union than to have the mood of hate impair the growing mind of the child. Many times a child's life and mind are dwarfed by the mood of the parents, which in the passage of years often results in neurosis and crime. It is far better for a boy to live with one parent who loves him than to live with two who hate each other and who fight all the time. Many men and women have told me that they feel very guilty because of what they term sex sins. They feel that God hasn't forgiven them. I explain to them that God is the life principle, that life does not condemn or punish, and that they are simply condemning themselves and suffering accordingly and needlessly. God is the life principle. If you burn your finger, you know very well that the life principle forgives you by reducing the edema and giving you new tissue. Life has no grudge against you for having burned yourself. It forms a blood clot, builds a bridge of new cells, and forms new skin. If you have eaten some bad food, life forgives you by causing you to regurgitate, thereby cleansing your system of possible food poisoning. Life always seeks to preserve you. This is the meaning of God does not condemn or punish you. We punish ourselves by the misuse of our subconscious mind. Jesus said to the woman caught in adultery, "Woman, where are those thine accusers? Hath no man condemned thee?" She said, "No man, Lord." And Jesus said unto her, "Neither do I condemn thee. Go and sin no more." John 8:10-11. The harlot, or the woman with the illegitimate child who may be condemned and stoned or ostracized by the world, may turn to the God presence within and claim her freedom and peace of mind. She realizes that God condemns no one. Thou art of pure eyes than to behold evil, and canst not look on iniquity. Habakkuk 1:13. Society and the world may condemn her, or she may engage in self-accusation and self-criticism. For the Father judgeth no man, but hath committed all judgment unto the Son. John 5:22. The Son is your mind. This is the place wherein you pronounce judgment on yourself by the thoughts you entertain. God, the Absolute, knows nothing about our errors and fears. You forgive yourself by giving yourself the mood of peace, love, and harmony for the mood of guilt, despair, and self-condemnation. Turn from the past and completely detach yourself from the former way of living. Mentally and emotionally unite with your aim, which is peace, dignity, happiness, and freedom. As you do, God in His glory responds at once. You will find a wave of peace moving over the arid areas of your mind like the dew of heaven, and the shadows of fear and guilt will pass away. As you cease to condemn yourself, you will find that neither can the world condemn you. There is nothing evil in sex or in anything else created and ordained by God. Male and female, created by them. Therefore shall a man leave his father and his mother, and shall cleave unto his wife, and they shall be one flesh. Genesis 2:24. In marriage you give yourself completely, spiritually, mentally, and physically. The sex act between husband and wife should be a love act, and each should realize that love is of God, and that any children born will be born of that love. The sex instinct is not opposed to spiritual impulses. The sex drive must be channeled constructively, harmoniously, and lovingly. Lust as such is not love. The normal sexual act between marriage partners, however, involves the genuine emotion of love, which is the essence of conjugal love. Many married men and women have a false negative attitude towards sex. Some think that it is evil, nasty, and ugly, possibly due to their upbringing or to some sexual shock in childhood. Often this attitude results in impotence in men and frigidity in women. I've had women say to me their husbands were materialistic and carnal, that they looked down on their husbands, claiming that they were superior because they despised and hated the sex act. This is pure rationalization and indicates subconscious poison pockets regarding sex, in all probability due to early training and false interpretation of the scriptures. A distant relative of mine once told me that before the sex act, she and her husband prayed. There is nothing wrong with prayer, but the reason for their prayer at that time was due to the fact that she looked upon the sexual act as sinful and unclean. and she thought she would exorcise through prayer any evil connected with the act. Basically, she had contempt for sex and was frigid. She said, "I love my husband spiritually, not physically." She separated sexual love from spiritual love. I explained to her that marriage is a total union of body and soul. A man shall cleave unto his wife, and they shall be one flesh. Genesis 2:24. She thereafter began to affirm, "I love my husband spiritually, mentally, emotionally, and physically. He is God's man, and I radiate love, peace, and goodwill to him. God's love flows from me to him, and our sex relationship is joyous, loving, and harmonious. Between us are mutual love, freedom, and respect." After a few weeks, her frigidity was dissolved, and there was a harmonious marriage. She intuitively perceived a great truth. God had placed in her heart a desire to attract a man, and he had placed in the man a desire to attract a woman. A few days ago, I talked to a woman who was about to get her 8th divorce. She was exceedingly bitter and resentful toward her present husband as well as toward all the previous ones. She had remarried each time without forgiving and mentally releasing her husbands, and each one was worse than the preceding one. Her inner mood of resentment had caused her to attract similar types of men based on the law of attraction. The cure was to forgive herself and all of her former husbands, and to build into her mentality the mental equivalent of the kind of man she desired. If you strike a key on a grand piano, all the tones in harmony with it will respond. They may be higher or lower, but they are similar. So too do you attract to yourself those people who have qualities based on your mood and concept of yourself. It is affinity or attraction, depending upon the chord you strike. You may strike a discord, but you do not take out all the discords in order to make a harmony. When you discipline your mind in prayer and enter into the spirit of forgiveness, you can play a divine melody. Suppose that a man cheats on his wife. If he had love and respect for his wife, he would not want any other woman. When a man was found his true spiritual ideal in marriage, he has no desire for any other woman. Love is a oneness. It is not a duality or multiplicity. A man who runs around with many women, which indicates the many adulterous moods within him, is marrying many concepts, such as frustration, resentment, cynicism, etc. When you have found love with your mate, you also have found a fullness of life. You may ask, why did some men previously have many wives? The reason was that at one time the earth was underpopulated, and the earthly fathers, not knowing anything better, followed this polygamous method. Today we are more spiritually awakened, and we know that the earth is populated enough. The philanderer has a profound inferiority complex and feels insecure, and all the women he meets are vacillating, neurotic, and confused like himself. He is seeing and hearing his own inner vibrations. Birds of a feather flock together, like begets like. Let us take the case of the woman who is running around with a married man. Such a woman has been unable to demonstrate a husband or a boyfriend. She gets a pseudo-satisfaction or false thrill in stealing another woman's husband. She too has an inferiority complex and is unstable. Man demotes himself by his feeling of lack and limitation. His fear is transmitted to his wife, and she reacts in kind. She cannot see him in the way she formerly did, as he has not the same feeling about himself. She can see him only in the way he sees himself. Likewise, he can see her only in the way she sees herself. If a man feels himself to be dignified, he commands respect, and he gets it. A man who has the predominant mood of success and happiness knits together all the members of his household. He is a cementing influence, and there is harmony and peace in his household. The sex life prevails in the vegetable, animal, and human life. Basically, it is the life force seeking expression in all its varied forms. The sex urge is operating in you through your talents, abilities, feelings, and urges. Whenever you meditate on the truths of God or upon any idea and enter into the feeling of it, that also is a phase of sex. Your hunger and thirst for truth, your spiritual awareness and understanding, and your intense desire to reproduce more and more of the goodness of God in the land of the living, these are all spiritual outlets for the sex urge or life force within you. When you are not fully expressed along all lines, and when you do not constructively channel your libido or life force, the emotions become dammed and bottled up, resulting in frustration, neurosis, imbalance, mental disorders, and in forms of escape in alcoholism and drug addiction. A man once boasted to me that he had not had relations with his wife for over 4 years, and he added that he had become more spiritual. He belonged to a strange cult, the leader of which had told him that in order to advance spiritually, he had to lead an ascetic life and refrain from all intercourse with his wife. This man was neurotic, afflicted with ulcers, and mentally disturbed. He had been brainwashed into believing that sex was evil and would inhibit his spiritual illumination. I explained to him that all this was pure balderdash and primitive thinking based on ignorance, superstition, and fear of sex. At my suggestion, he renewed normal relations with his wife, looking upon the act as right. He realized that he was God placed in this world to enjoy all of his senses and to go forth and multiply and replenish the earth. Wise use of our faculties, urges, and desires in moderation in all things is the answer, not repression or suppression. Thereafter, his constant prayer was, "We have a happy, joyous marriage, satisfying and harmonious, of true and lasting love. Divine love reigns supreme in our marriage now." This marriage has been much happier than ever before. If love is lacking in your life, use this prayer frequently. God's love, wisdom, and harmony are being expressed through me now. Poise, balance, and equilibrium reign supreme in my life. As you make a habit of this prayer, wonders will happen in your life. Love, inspiration, and guidance will well up spontaneously, and you will become an irresistible magnet, attracting to you all the blessings of life from all directions. Young men and women often ask me if they should experiment before marriage. I tell them that marriage does not change anything, and that if they freely indulge before marriage, how can they expect fidelity or trust after marriage? A young man who was studying physics in New York went in for free love. Morals, he said, are a joke. He had no standards, and he was having sexual relations with several girls who attended the same college. One girl became pregnant. Then there followed legal action and a shotgun wedding. He had to quit college in order to take care of his wife. He worked as a waiter. He had married a girl he didn't want, and a baby was born that neither of them wanted. Where are his freedom and his free love? He has placed himself in the prison of want, lack, resentment, and poverty. You are aware that you must curb your appetite for alcohol, fats, ice cream, and cigarettes. Likewise, you must curb your emotions, urges, and drives, and you must see that they are expressed harmoniously and wisely. Your sex life must be blended with love and understanding. Premarital sexual experiences are not conducive to a happy married life. Often the man distrusts the woman he can have so easily. He says to himself, if she will do this before marriage, she will do it with others afterwards. I ask a young man, is your girlfriend nobler, grander, sweeter, more dignified in your eyes now than before sex relations? Usually he blushes and says, no, I guess you're right. Happiness in marriage depends on love, loyalty, honesty, devotion to the truth, integrity, and a desire to lift up each other spiritually, mentally, and in all ways. Love does not take a woman to a shabby motel. Neither is real love experienced by an illicit interlude in such a cheap motel. To maintain a happy married life, pray together, and you will stay together. Affirm frequently. Divine love, harmony, peace, and perfect understanding are now operating and expressed in our heavenly marriage. Morning, noon, and night we salute the divinity in each other, and all our ways are ways of pleasantness, and all our paths are peace. This is a very different lecture by Joseph Murphy than many of his other lectures. Here we get a focus on love and marriage and sexuality, and it is very interesting, his perspective. The stories that he gave are very interesting. As someone that's recently married, I found this very profound, and I don't necessarily agree with all of it, but it all makes sense, and many of the different affirmations that he used seem very powerful. It is true. Love should be a part of that union that you have, and there is a difference between lust and love, and we're learning these lessons of love in this time. I find it very interesting that Neville Goddard and Joseph Murphy say that the word fornication is much different than most people think. That I found interesting. This is the second time saying man is fornicating when he mentally and emotionally unites with erroneous concepts, indulges in resentment and anger. These things are highly misunderstood in the Bible and have caused incredible disunity in spiritual circles. But this lesson is very important. You can find the love that you want by dwelling upon those things that you find loving. And there's always a lesson spiritually in this process of love. You can be married and your marriage is a sham, and you cannot be married, but you are truly married. Love is divine and powerful and wonderful, and it is giving us lessons in so many ways, particularly in loving relationships. And this particular lecture I found very interesting. If you're a fan of Dr. Joseph Murphy, you'll find this interesting as well, because it is very different than many of his other lectures. In any case, all episodes of The Reality Revolution can be found at therealityrevolution.com, and welcome to The Reality Revolution.